This is the regularly scheduled meeting of the Compliance and Amendments Committee. Chris, would you read the roll call, please?
Yes, Madam Chair. Member Snyder excused. Member Nee.
Snyder is here.
Yes, sir.
Snyder present. Member Nee.
Here.
Nee present. Member Washburn.
Here.
Washburn present. Member Wolf. Wolf excused. Member Johnson. Johnson present. Madam Chair, there is a quorum.
Excuse me. Microphone's over here, please.
Do we have any agenda changes?
There are no agenda changes, Madam Chair.
Okay. Would you call the next item on the agenda, please, Chris?
Item number 1 is approval of October 12, 2010 regular meeting minutes.
Move to approve. Oh, I do have some. I move to approve.
I have a couple of small
Need
corrections.
a second.
We need a second. Yes.
A second?
Okay. Member Nee?
Yeah. On page 2 of the minutes, page 5 of our packet, I want to propose a change in item 4, third paragraph. Replace the word make with recommend. It's the Ethics Commission's document, and so any changes they would have to be the maker of the changes. So I think that should be recommend instead of make. On the same page, under Roman numeral 2, letter L, second line, non-compliant should have a hyphen. That's what I have.
Member Johnson?
I just have one typo change. I think it's a typo. It's an item 3. It's on page 4 of our packet. It says approval of September 14th, 2010 meeting minutes, but right below that, the motion listed as August meeting minutes.
Oh. And I have a change on page 2 of the minutes, page 5 of the packet. Roman numeral 3, near the bottom, when the executive director and commission receive, so delete the S. Is there any public comment on the meeting minutes from October 12th? Seeing none. Chris, would you call the roll, please?
On the motion, Member Snyder. Snyder, aye. Member Nee.
Aye.
Nee, aye. Member Johnson.
Aye.
Johnson, aye. Member Washburn.
Aye.
Washburn, aye. Madam Chair, there are 4 ayes.
Would you call the next item, please?
The second item is approval of October 27, 2010 special meeting minutes.
Is there a motion to approve?
So move.
Second?
Second.
Member Nee?
Yeah, have some fixes and a suggestion. On page 1 of the minutes, page 8 of our packet, item 1, second paragraph, just delete the word that. In the 5th paragraph, on line 2, very last word, not to let them, I think that should say not to let the commission. And then the line below that, on board, I believe should be 2 words. On page 2 of the minutes, page 9, this is still under item 1, very last paragraph, members agreed to meet December 4 at an off-site location. Because this is going to be an off-site meeting, I would suggest we change the wording to say, members agreed to hold a public meeting December 4th at an off-site location, just to make it absolutely clear that we want to make this open and inclusive. Also, I'm not sure if this is a typo or if it's just a little black spot on the sheet of paper that I have in front of me, but after December 4th, there's a little dot on there. I don't know if it's in other people's copies
Yeah,
or
it
not.
is.
It is? There, so it might be a period there that should not be there.
Do other members have corrections? I have just two. This is page 2 of the minutes, page 9 of the packet. The fourth paragraph, public comment by Chemo Crossman. And he said that Mr. Grossman won awards at Harvard for clarity in his penmanship. I'm pretty sure it was probably writing rather than penmanship. And then the next to the last line in that paragraph, I believe it should be are disclosable because it is an administrative agency. Present tense. So strike was and should be is. Okay. Is there any public comment on the minutes from our last meeting?
Well, I definitely appreciate both your comments and Chemo's, but I'm not sure that it was either my penmanship or writing that got me the degree that I got with the academic distinction. So I just as soon have it out.
Okay.
If you would do that. And I'm not being modest. It's just I think it's better not said.
Oh,
Thank you.
okay, all right. So, Member Nee.
Yeah, I'm not sure I agree with that. The minutes are supposed to reflect what happened at the meeting. And if Mr. Crossman made that comment, then I believe it should be left in.
But I don't think he said penmanship, though.
Whatever
Chris-
whatever he said should be left in.
Okay, so Chris, if you could just double check that.
Yes, Madam Chair.
All right. Could you call the roll, please?
On the motion, Member Snyder?
Aye.
Snyder, aye. Member Nee?
Aye.
Nee, aye. Member Johnson?
Aye.
Johnson, aye. Member Washburn?
Aye.
Washburn, aye. Madam Chair, we have 4 ayes.
Could you call the next item on the agenda, please?
Item number 3 is hearing on the status of the October 26, 2010 order of determination in Kelly Lanza against the District Attorney's Office.
All right, so this procedure will be very much like what we had at the full task force meeting. So the complainant has 5 minutes to present evidence pertaining to compliance with the order of determination.
Actually, I was just handed information from the district attorney's office in the past 5 minutes that looks like it may be completely responsive. I'm not sure if it is. I'm going to have my counsel look it over. It was just handed to me. So hopefully it is. We'll find out. In the interest of full disclosure, I have filed a petition with the Superior Court in San Francisco to force them to comply, although I don't know what any of this means to it. So hopefully we've gotten somewhere. But it was just handed to me 5 minutes ago. Based on the order, they didn't respond within 5 days, but they did today.
Okay. So nothing further?
Not at this point.
Okay. Is there anyone to speak in support of the complainant? Okay, so seeing none, the respondent has 5 minutes.
All right. Good evening. Good to see you all again under better circumstances than the conditions I was in last time.
Excuse me, could you identify
I'm
yourself,
sorry,
please?
Paul Henderson with the San Francisco District Attorney's Office.
Okay, thank you.
And I did have a letter prepared. I have my staff here as well with me. with the updates to the requests that we addressed at the last hearing and our responses that I've given to the complainant as well. I have copies for everyone on the council as well. And just so you know, this is the same letter that the complainant has a copy of as well, and the documents are available. She's given us a check just now to pay for the expenses associated with the documents that are now available and ready for her to pick up.
Mr. Rustin, could you check the microphone, okay. Is there a way of,
I probably wasn't speaking directly into it.
Okay.
Is that better?
yes, it is, thanks.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry, that's it. That's all I had. I
All right.
believe all of her inquiries should be addressed. Each and every one of them is responded to specifically. As the panel is aware, some of the documents had been turned over previously. This latest document should reflect all of the updated changes, amendments, and additions in terms of what we've been able to do and what's available for her to come and pick up.
Okay. Is there anyone to speak in support of the respondent?
I didn't bring
Within-
I didn't bring anyone to speak in support of me, although my staff is here that helped prepare the documents themselves. When I spoke last time at the hearing, my staff that was preparing them was not available on that evening, so they're here, but I don't know that they would have more to say other than what's contained in the documents, because I wanted it to be recorded both for the panel and for the complainant as well, so that they knew where we were
All right.
and what our response was on all of the issues.
Okay.
So I'll accede whatever remaining time there is, unless the hearing has more, unless you guys have more questions for me or the complainant. I'll be here. I'll sit down.
Okay, well, the matter is now with the task force. We most assuredly will probably have questions, so don't wander too far. Member Johnson.
I have one question, Mr. Henderson. Are you representing that this is the completed response or the ongoing response?
You have to introduce yourself.
Hi, Sandeep Patel, that's SANDIP-PATEL. We've addressed all of the issues, all of the separate requests that were requested. However, there were two requests, and if I could direct your attention to those two specific requests. They are on page 3, that's request number 7. And page 4, request number 8, where we have asked for a narrowing of the subject matter that's requested. And the reasoning behind our request for narrowing is also in there. Specifically, there's several thousand responsive documents. For us to go through all of those documents would be really time consuming. So if there's a specific type of document that's requested, we've asked for a narrowing to specify which document.
I have a comment for you that I understand that the need for specificity. It's too bad you didn't explain that to the complainant much earlier. She could have helped you early on, made your job easier, and possibly prevented this whole thing from happening.
Thank you.
So I think it's important always to work with a member of the public who requests records, because they know what they want. Well, sometimes they don't always know exactly what's available, but I think it's a matter of working closely with the individual. It will most definitely save you time and will be very helpful to the member of the public.
Thank you.
Other members?
Yeah, I just have a general question about, I wonder if one of you could just offer an explanation of why it took so long to respond to these. You know, the request was back in June, and I don't have any way of knowing at this point whether this is a complete response, but it looks like there was some effort put into this. Why did it take so long?
You know, the request is quite onerous. I mean, it asks for records from 1998. All three of us that are here today, this isn't our full-time job. We don't do public records from 9 to 5. We have other responsibilities as well. So a lot of the time that it took to respond to this document, we were basically weighing what our primary responsibilities are as employees of San Francisco, which is for me to prosecute crimes. For Mr. Henderson, he's the chief of administration, so to make sure that the office runs well. And Katie does a lot of the projects and sort of outreach to the community and certain programs. So it did take a long time. And our approach has always been to try to get whatever documents were readily available out as soon as possible. But when requests go back to 1998, that's more than 2 administrations old. It takes a lot of time to locate, identify, review documents, and it's one of the things that happens when there's a request that spans almost 2 decades.
If I can also add Paul Henderson, just for the record, so we're clear, and part of. And I spoke to some of this at the last hearing when I was here about how much time it takes to find and get this information. But one of the issues that we didn't really spend a lot of time talking about, but I just feel like it's kind of important to point out, is that when we do get these requests, we actually do a full and entire search. I don't want to come before this hearing and respond to people and give a knee-jerk reaction of, oh, that doesn't exist. We really do a thorough search. We really do talk to the different departments. We really do examine file cabinets, computers, books and boxes, things that are in storage. When we get these requests, we do take them quite seriously. And all of that takes much longer than I suspect. And when I talk to the people in the public and I talk to them about what their request means and what is going on behind the scenes, very frequently people are surprised. Most people have an expectation that these are individual files on like some master computer somewhere and it's just a push of a button, and it's not that at all. And I know I keep repeating the same things again and again, but the general requests that we get are exacerbated by the fact that some of the requests that come in terms of when they go back in time, particularly beyond the 4 or 5 year period where we all just got computers, it automatically means that people are going through individual documents of paper that have been stored someplace and are being reviewed. And I just want to, I know we've talked about it in the past, I just want to reiterate that that's part of the process of what goes on when requests like these are made.
Mr. Henderson, Mr. Patel, I'm sorry, I don't know your name, but one of the goals of the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force, or one of our charges in addition to holding hearings like this, is to inform the public about their rights under the ordinance, and also to educate the people who work in City Hall about what their responsibilities are. And as public employees, it is a part of your job, it's a part of everyone's job to respond to inquiries from the public. And we all understand that you have your main designated function, which is, in your case, very important. But public's requests for records are extremely important too, and are a part of your job. And so, and I know this is a time of budget cuts and you don't have extra help around to do these things, but it's just important to keep in mind that providing the public with records is critical. And so there were probably some records you could have gotten to her far earlier, and you could have certainly communicated to her because she was pretty patient. And then in August she started emailing you quite often, and you could have let her know that you could have worked with her more. I'm saying, I don't mean to chide all of you. I appreciate. Well, I can't really appreciate, but I hear what you're saying about your situation. But I just want to reiterate that her requests were time sensitive, for one thing, and she was patient, and you wouldn't be standing here probably if you had worked more closely with her.
Thank you, and I appreciate the comments that you just made, and I just wanted to explain one other thing, which is that in addition to the balancing we do with requests such as this, which is a pretty extensive one, and our other duties, part of our role is also to balance the various public record requests that we get in. And during the time period that we've been working on this, we've also had many others that we were simultaneously responsible for responding to. So I don't want it to be misheard that we're just balancing, doing a little bit of this and then a lot of other work about other things. We are also responding at the same time to many other requests.
Okay.
But thank you.
Member Johnson.
I just wanted to make one comment for the record, just because the complainant was clearly open about being from a public relations firm when the head of your department is running for public office. It was pretty clear that she wanted these before the election. And in your letter, on the bottom of the first page, it states that you responded on July 12th, September 9th, and October 18th. And I think that's a little bit overbroad statement, covering a little too much. For example, she had asked for a calendar, and the district attorney is required under 67.29-5. And I just want to say, personally, I don't know about the rest of the members, but I think it reflects poorly on Ms. Harris, especially someone running for Attorney General of the state, to not comply with at least that bare minimum. And it lends itself to the appearance, maybe people don't want to say it, that she didn't want to turn them over before the election. And I just want to say that because I think that the letter implies that you turned over a lot more than you did.
Let me just clarify for the record, that implication is absolutely wrong. I mean, it's just absolutely not true that was a factor in terms of how we conduct our business or do our jobs. What the political climate is or isn't has nothing to do with the balancing act that we do in terms of getting these requests, plural, out, and the jobs that we do in our day-to-day management. And I can say that personally because I'm, as a chief, all of this is going on under me and around me. And we did have regular check-ins about what was being done, and not to repeat, but just to reiterate some of the things that Katie Miller was saying. We get voluminous requests frequently, and we try not to let any of them slip through the cracks or put them on the back burner. And it's an ongoing process that we regularly try and address and get as much as we can out as frequently as we can. And unfortunately, because of our personnel limitations, and particularly in the instances when we have requests that are not readily available and require not just compliance but research before the compliance, we have to ask for continuance, or we make requests for continuance. And I'd love to say that will never happen again. I think each time that we do it, we learn a little bit more about our own specific records. And in my opinion, that process is improving and becoming more efficient as we go on. I look at every request as a new learning opportunity, not just for me, but for my staff as well. But I feel like I just have to address and say that one of the things that is contemplated when we're doing this process is not whatever the political climate is or whatever the election results are. That's not one of the things. And in fact, it's, if anything, it's more tumultuous today and right now than it was in the past. But we have as much as we have right now, and I just wanted to have as much to present as possible for all of you and for the complainant as well, which is why we're here and why I brought my staff today. That and as well, the last time I was here, I felt like I know I wasn't communicating very well because I was ill, and I didn't have my staff here to give as much information as I felt like I could have even at the last hearing, where I could have given you more specifics about what was being done and where it is. That's why I wanted it documented in this letter that I wanted to provide to you today. So
I appreciate what you're saying, but as the district attorney's office, I expect you'd be able to respond to the calendar in 3 days. So that, I mean, I understand that you're responding to what I said, but I think that you guys, your department is particularly unique to me as somebody who's worked in the legal field for a long time. You guys do this all the time. You respond to document requests all the time, so you know about staffing, you know how to pick through pieces of it that are things that are important. And so I just wanted to say that 3 days, you asked for a 2-week extension, 4 months for that 3 days of calendaring is not acceptable from the district attorney's office or the city attorney's office or any legal office for the city, when you know that she's using these documents for something that she needed it by a specific date.
Other members? Well, we haven't had time really to read the letter, of course, and nor has the complainant had time to make sure that she has everything that she has. I think we'll need to, see if there's anything more that the complainant needs or so forth. But I suggest you work closely with her in that eventuality to make sure that that you comply fully. Other members, anything to add to that? Member Johnson?
A procedural question. Do we still monitor this if the complainant has filed with the Superior Court?
Member Nee?
Yeah, well, the Superior, I think the Superior Court filing is separate from what we're doing here, yes.
But again, I suppose, if the complainant wants to get in touch with us, that's okay. But I would first work with the district attorney's office to make sure you get what you can from them if you need some additional information. Okay. All right.
thank you, Pat.
Pardon me?
Including remarks.
Or any concluding remarks?
3 minutes each.
3 minutes each, I'm sorry. Oh, well, we haven't heard from the members of the public.
No, respondent, then complainant each get 3 minutes to make concluding
And then
or
the
rebutting
public.
remarks. Then it's back to us for motions, then public.
Okay, all right, sorry. So first the respondent has 3 minutes to make any concluding remarks, then the complainant.
I don't have more. I don't want to waste anybody's time and reiterate the same things that I've said today and at the past hearing. As I said, I think we put a lot of hard work and effort into responding, and the letter and the documents should speak for themselves in terms of what we've been able to do so far. So I'll just leave it at that. I don't want to just make a speech just to be making one.
Okay, all right. The complainant, you now have 3 minutes.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank the task force for everything they've done thus far. I will be in contact pending a closer look at the documents or the letter that they provided to me today, and I just wanted to say thank you.
All right, the matters, no.
Yeah, I'm not sure that we could at this time have a motion because we don't know if the responses that the respondent has provided to the complainant satisfy the complainant's request. So, as chair of the task force, I'm going to calendar this for the next task force meeting, with the next regular meeting, which is November 30th. And at that time, we will expect to hear from the complainant and then the respondent as to whether the requests have been satisfied. If not, why not? And so at this at this point, I don't think there's any further action necessary on the part of this committee.
Right, I agree. Is there any public comment on this matter?
Well, first, I'm sure Mr. Henderson is very familiar with the ordinance, which says the work of responding to a public records request and preparing documents for disclosure shall be considered part of the regular work duties of any city employee. So the notion about priorities of other responsibilities and so forth, particularly in view of the time-sensitive nature of this request, I really wonder. The other part of it is, as Yogi Berra once said, this is deja vu all over again. Mr. Henderson and I have met before, as Mr. Nee may recall. There was a request for some records, which we had made on behalf of an individual who was interested in backup tapes that each of the city departments had. And it just asked for the way in which they maintain those tapes without asking for the particular content of what was on the tapes. And every department, including the city attorney, responded with the information except for the district attorney's office. And Mr. Henderson and Mr. Patel dutifully showed up and gave a litany of excuses and explanations. And ultimately, they relied on a claim that it would impact the security of their records. And at the time, oh boy, this senior moment hit me. Mr. Snyder's predecessor on the task force,
Erica Craven Green?
yes, made clear that she was very familiar with the software and there was no such thing. It ultimately ended up being referred to the Ethics Commission as one of the two cases in which this district attorney's office was referred to the Ethics Commission. I've seen the records of the Ethics Commission on those two cases, and there is nothing to indicate that there was any serious attempt by either ethics or Mr. Henderson, other than an odd thing that happened that I will keep for now in my own way, that would indicate that they had satisfied the concern that had been expressed. And here we are again today, and it's the old ropey-dope stuff. We asked to see their IT person, the guy that was in charge of their IT, and they refused to produce that individual. And I think that was one of the reasons the matter got referred. I see no reason why they should not now, after 4 months or 5 months, there should be a willful aspect to this, attended to it, and I don't see any reason why they should be given 5 months to comply with a records request when no one else is. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Grossman. Further public comment? Seeing none. Chris, would you call the next item, please?
The next item is the Ethics Commission's proposed policy for handling sunshine-related complaints.
I would once again like to invite Mr. Grossman to join us.
I'll just sit back here if that's okay.
Okay, so we'll have a member of the public. Fine. All right. So just to remind ourselves, we are planning a Saturday meeting, December 4th, to hash all of this out. And do we have a venue for that yet? Okay, all right. And before that, Member Snyder is going to provide us with, would you remind us again what you're going to provide us with?
Yeah, so my plan at the moment is to just go through Mr. Grossman's edits, proposed additions and suggestions, and to go through to start with the Ethics Commission's draft, and then go through Mr. Grossman's edits and suggestions, and then see if I have anything worthwhile to add or change from Mr. Grossman's suggestions, and basically try to integrate all of it into a product that we can look at and say, here's one thing that we can work off of. I think that was what I was there anything else that's what I had in my mind? Is there anything else that other members think that I should be doing?
Member Johnson?
I hate to keep sort of harping on this, but I'm a little bit concerned about, I just want to make sure we don't let slip through the cracks our opportunity to, I should preface this by saying that I agree that the Ethics Commission should not be de novo hearing, starting from the beginning of hearing this. I agree with that.
Yeah.
But when we spoke before the Ethics Commission to that, the three commissioners made it pretty clear they disagreed. So I want to make sure that even if we recommend that they take that out, if they still disagree, they were, it was a pretty adamant, we were all pretty adamant that we disagreed with them. But if they insist on leaving it in, are we working toward some sort of language that we would like to include?
Okay, Member Nee?
Yeah, I just want to coattail on what Member Johnson said. Not only do we want the Ethics Commission not to start de novo, we also want to make the referrals that we send the responsibility of the Ethics Commission to dispose of. We want to remove the executive director and staff functions on this, and have the commission be more than a rubber stamp of the executive director and or other members of the staff. But ultimately, this is their set of regs. We can go only so far in in helping the Ethics Commission to decide what should and shouldn't go in its own guidelines. These are the Ethics Commission's guidelines, and ultimately, whatever they decide, that's what we'll have. And what it may ultimately take is a complete rewriting of the local sunshine laws in terms of how they're handled, what happens in cases of willful scofflawing. I guess scofflawing is willful. Ultimately, I think that may be what it's coming to, and we're going to have to gird our loins on the political as well as the legal front here, because it was one thing to get the initial ordinance passed when we had a friendly board of supervisors. It was one thing to get Prop G passed in 1999 when there was no real organized, well-funded opposition to it. But the kind of changes that we really need to this ordinance, the kind of change that we really need in the relationship between the task force and other enforcing entities, including ethics, including the Board of Supervisors, including the DA, including the California Attorney General. What we really need in terms of the task force's ability to go after scofflaws, I would guess that if we really want if we really try to put through what we need, we're going to find ourselves facing some extremely stiff opposition, well organized, well funded. I'm perfectly happy to go, to go forth with the effort, and I imagine that there will be a whole lot of other people out there who would join that fight, but it won't be an easy one.
So what I'm hearing is Member Johnson and Member Nee both looking at the politics of this and the how far apart we are from ethics. I mean,
they might accept it, but if they didn't, would we have something prepared to say?
well, have something prepared. I mean, we could have a fallback position that we would, try to reach a compromise with ethics. But we do have this, we have been working for a number of years on amending the Sunshine Ordinance, and we had been planning to do it this year, but that didn't happen. So this next year with the mayoral election. So, it could be that we use this meeting or this time to continue the dialogue with ethics, and then, depending on the outcome, we'll go forward, which we should anyway. Member Nee?
Yeah, certainly I think what's going on now and however this plays out with ethics should be a prominent part of the annual report that the task force files next year with the Board of Supervisors. If there is need for any kind of change to the charter where ethics is concerned, we should certainly urge that the board place a series of amendments on the ballot to go to the voters. Since it's part of the charter, it would have to go to the voters. But that's something we should start considering now in terms of what, if any, changes we would want the board to suggest to the voters.
Member Johnson, and then Mr. Grossman.
I think what the two of you are talking about is a little bit broader than what I'm talking about. I'm talking about if they insist on leaving those investigation portion, if the Ethics Commission insists on leaving the investigation portion in their regulations, are we going to prepare some sort of language to offer? I realize we're going to tell them we think that that's completely inappropriate, but if they decide to put it in anyway, are we going to prepare some draft that changes some of the things that are in there that we didn't like? Or are we just going forward saying we don't want it in there, and if they put it in, it'll be as is?
Okay, maybe Mr. Grossman can help
maybe.
us with this.
Well, maybe coming from a point of view of someone who actually sat with one of the commissioners for a couple of hours and talked about some of this, and the sense that I had from the first meeting I forgot whether it was June or whatever, when they made the three decisions, but agreed that they were going to reconsider once they got our comments. And the fact that the most important one, which was the third one, they didn't get all the commissioners. They got 3, but they didn't get 2 who were pretty important. And my view is, why would they want to handle plain garden variety complaints about violations of the Sunshine Ordinance? they've got enough to do. They're canceling meetings right and left. For them to set up a procedure and to involve staff and the whole thing just makes no sense, because ultimately it's just a lot more work. Plus, the basis on which they would take that jurisdiction is really questionable. They don't have a clear mandate to do it like they do willful violations. And willful violations, they can have those. You know, God love them. You've got enough to do with the plain ones, and getting them to the point where if they turn out to be truly non-compliant, you send them over there, and then they become a referral, and it's an enforcement issue. It's not a investigation or anything like that. So my view, you know, I think, you know, as I thought Obama should have, you know, gone for the public option, you know, I think that's the best way to do it, is to go in and say, look, why on earth do you want to do this? You know, you're creating a monster for yourself, because you're muscle bound. You've got rules, Administrative Procedure Act. You've got to have a report from an executive director, you know, and staff and all this other stuff, and the respondents can't see everything, and the complainant can't see anything. I mean, why do you want to do that? So again, my view would be, make it easy for them. Say, it's not your table. Besides which, if you want to take concurrent jurisdiction, what's going to happen when we both hear the same complaint? And we say it's a violation, and you're saying it's not, and we refer it to you for enforcement. What are you going to do? You know, so there's a total disconnect as far as I'm concerned in who, but St. Croix and his staff, believe me, are not up to this. You know, they're not able to look at it the way we do, because they know nothing about the task force. They've almost never been to any of your meetings. They don't know what a complaint looks like or how it's pursued or whatever, because all they like to do is dismiss the referrals. So that's one big thing. Another big thing to me is ethics in their bylaws says they are going to comply with the ordinance. They're going to comply with the ordinance. And in the ordinance, the task force is the hearing body on complaints. It doesn't say anything about ethics hearing. Mm-hmm. It doesn't say about ethics doing anything. Mm-hmm. So why would they want to insert themselves when they've already agreed that you guys are probably the designated hitters on this? So that's another reason. So I wouldn't have a backup position or anything on it. I would just say, you're making a mistake. If you think your staff just took some old regulations you had for, you know, campaign finance and you name it, and they just retooled it for sunshine complaints. But you can't do that. It doesn't make any sense to you. So you should focus on the referral issues and focus on willful violations, because those really count. And willful violations can't involve everybody. They can only involve certain people described in 6734 or 5, I forgot which, 4. So you're going to make their life easier, because they're going to have a very limited scope. They'll be able to let the executive director do a certain amount of the grunt work, but after that, then they can, you know, do their job. So I wouldn't pussyfoot it, honestly. I really wouldn't.
Thank you.
On that point.
Okay. Other comments? Member Snyder?
I think Member Johnson's suggestion or question as to whether we're going to have some alternative language to offer is a good one. I mean, off the top of my head, I don't see a reason to not have that in our back pocket, but I think we should go in with the idea that we're going to say this is a bad idea. What Mr. Grossman was just saying, you really shouldn't do this. I just don't have a sense right now of how much back and forth there will be or how much back and forth we can expect. But assuming we have the ability and time to create some alternative language, and assuming there's a way to create alternative language that everyone can agree on, I don't see a reason to not have it. In the event they say, no, we're going to do this, and we'll say, well, all right, our alternative position to you not doing this altogether is to at least do this. You know, at least change this wording a little bit so that it's a little bit more acceptable. You know, if it looks like they're just going to be completely intransigent and say, well, no, we insist that we have this capacity to do investigations, then we offer a kind of midway point. I don't see a problem with that.
Well, I would argue that a midway point, well, first of all, we can't know ahead of time what they're going to say. So we will be spending a lot of effort developing a backup plan. And we do have an opportunity to amend the Sunshine Ordinance. And I would think that this matter is one of the critical ones we'll want to take care of. So I'm thinking I'd like to hang tough and remember that there are peers and that we have a charge that's we think is pretty clear. We're going to clear it up further. So maybe we come out of the joint meeting we're in completely different places. But I don't know that we need to cave on something we're pretty clear about.
That's not caving. I mean, if I just I appreciated what Mr. Grossman said about it, but having been at the meeting where they were very adamant and we all spoke about taking those out already, I think we do have an idea of what they're going to say. I think that the three of them, that doesn't mean that the other two couldn't convince them, so I don't think it's something you should bring to the table. But if you ignore it and you wait for the Sunshine Ordinance, you're going to live for a significant period of time with whatever they decide.
Yeah, I mean, we
rather
could
than having your own input. That's all I'm saying, and I don't think we should waste too much time on it. But just walking, if you listen to that meeting, the Ethics Commission meeting from back in June, you'll hear me, Member Nee, Mr. Grossman, Chemo, Mark Solomon, a number of people, and they all, there was some real opposition there to what we were saying. So the likelihood of amending the Sunshine Ordinance in a swift period of time, I mean, maybe they'll never get to them, but to me it seems as though leaving it to them without having any input just leaves it open to a way of dismissing more complaints, the investigative part of it.
You know, maybe we can do all of these things. We offer position one. If they say absolutely not, forget about it. Then we say, well, okay, that's what we really want, but here's a compromise. Would you at least go for that? It takes, and they say, if they then say, no, absolutely not, then we proceed with seeing about an amendment to the Sunshine Ordinance. If they say, okay, we'll take that suggestion, that doesn't prevent us from still going and seeking an amendment to the Sunshine Ordinance. Just because they've accepted our compromise position doesn't mean that we've pledged to not push for an amendment. No, for real though. I mean, we could, because we say, look, you accept that, okay, great, but we still disagree with it. It's a little better, but that doesn't solve the problem. So let's.
And we're going to the voters.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Grossman.
Well, I don't know if Hope and I were at the same meeting, but at the end of the meeting, it was pretty clear to me that they actually hadn't thought through what the ordinance was about, because they were actually looking at sections and scratching their heads and saying, what does this mean, what does that mean, and so forth. And they're so used to having the staff give them a roadmap, and all they have to do is say yay or nay, that they just didn't want to do anything other than say, okay, you need to do something, so start going on these premises, but we'll review them once we get the task force comments. And frankly, if we and I'm using that term because I feel I'm part of this, come in with the notion that we have to provide a backup or a compromise, then we've already weakened our will on this issue and our ability to argue it with a great deal of passion. And I don't think it's a good idea. I think we've seen the last 2 years what can happen if you try to argue with people who don't want to hear things, and then you don't really argue. You try to compromise. You get you get a kind of a goofy result, if any. So I've spent time with Susan Harriman, and she is the toughest of the five, no doubt. Mr. Ward, I'm sure, would be open. Mr. Herr was very understanding about why do we, what is our basis for spending all this time on these cases? The task force has already heard them. Why do we have to redo them all over again? And we know Eileen Hansen is going to be on our side from the get-go. So, and then there's the chair, Studley. And so she's pretty smart, and I think that she understands what's going on. The education process for them started in June. They haven't revisited it officially because what they did in June produced what you saw in August, and my meetings with Harriman were just with Harriman. Mm-hmm. So there's been no opportunity really to go back into it. I think we were back there maybe in August. My memory thing. But I think they'd be pretty open to the idea of let's have a pretty clean and simple set of rules and keep our workload to what we do best. And if we offer that up, and if they say, no, we'd love to hear all these complaints that you've been hearing 10 or 15 a year for the last 10 years, that's 150 of those, and we'd have to enforce them ourselves and the whole thing, I'm not sure that they would be in love with that idea, particularly with the bureaucratic approach that they would have to follow using their staff. So I mean, if you have a joint meeting and it turns out, they're definite, they want to hear a complaint from the get-go, then you say, okay, then we'll come back and give you some suggestions. But up to this point, we could see no reason why you would want to do that.
We have a joint meeting scheduled?
We don't have a joint meeting scheduled yet, no. I don't know whether to move ahead and schedule something. The December 4th meeting we're committed to that, but we don't have a venue yet. And I don't know if we want to wait until after the December 4th meeting to schedule a joint meeting after the first of the year. I think that's what we were talking about before. I just hesitate right now to try to pin something down with them. So we may have to change it. Member Nee?
Well, I think we should let them know precisely what you said.
Okay.
That we're still. This is taking us longer than expected. There are a lot of very complex issues. There's a lot of discussion going on regarding the overall thrust of the regulations, proposed policies, as well as some of the details. And we appreciate their interest in hearing from us. We appreciate their patience in dealing with us and letting us take the time necessary to do the thought work on this.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as we feel that we're ready to meet with them, then we'll let them know, and certainly if they want to attend any of our meetings,
Mm-hmm.
they're welcome to do so, because they might be able to provide some input that's very helpful to us.
Okay, So a thoughtful update to them, and yeah. And you've offered some very gracious language. Thank you. Member Snyder.
I just remembered, so on the 29th, for our December meeting, I'm going to provide my attempt at assimilating all the stuff that we've been talking about and providing a draft, and I'm hoping to give a compare documents version that shows, I'll probably just compare it against the original draft regulations that we received, compare it with the changes that I've made, which I'm going to incorporate Mr. Grossman's and all the comments that we've made. What I didn't say before is I'm also, so that document is at least somewhat useful, I'm going to provide a brief, hopefully, summary of the highlights so that everybody can see what I've proposed. That way we have a starting place for discussion. That also, I think, could be used as a template for a cover letter to provide to the Ethics Commission, which I think we should do. In my view, we should give this to them with a letter that explains briefly, and not in too much detail, but briefly, here's what we did, and briefly, here's why. Here's why we think this is the way to go. Is a sort of persuasive educational document. But I don't know that I'll have the time or ability to kind of provide a full suggested draft, and I'm not even sure I could incorporate everything people want in that. So maybe my letter to the committee, is it the committee or the task force that's meeting, the December meeting? Just the committee. So my letter to the committee will be a summary. Here's what I did and why.
Right, the cover letter to them will have to wait till after our December 4th meeting. Yeah. Yeah. Mr. Grossman?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. You know that the commission's got 7 referred cases that they're sitting on, and my sense is they're not going to do anything with them until they get this resolved. They have a set of regulations governing sunshine matters, and if they don't get the package or whatever until probably, or they're not going to do anything in December, because their December meeting will have come right after, I think, your December 4 meeting, and you want to have a joint meeting, so you're in January, then it'll take another month maybe before you can sort it all out between the two groups. And then you're in February, and then once the final regulations are ready, they can't actually put them into practice for 60 days because they go to the Board of Supervisors, who have 60 days to take them up officially or just do nothing and let them become effective. So now you're into April, and they've got these cases that have been sitting there all this time. And it's not that we can do very much about it other than to try to condense the schedule as quickly as to maybe save a month or 6 weeks, if that's possible. The meeting on December 4th, it's not clear, is that a full task force meeting?
No, it's just us.
And the committee will then be submitting what it finds or ends up with David's draft and cover letter will go then to the Ethics Commission, and then a joint meeting will be scheduled?
Right. That's my understanding of the
And
process.
we send it as a committee, but it's not something that we want to put to the full task force. Unless there's a need to go to the full task force, it seems to me the committee could just send it, we'd save a step, but I don't know if that's proper or appropriate.
Member Nee?
I partly agree and partly don't agree. I mean, I would have no problem with us going forward, with the committee going forward with it. at the same time, there might be some, it's really, it's a tough situation because there might well be some other people on the task force who are not on this committee who feel very strongly about the proposed policy that ethics is putting forward. And at the same time, all of us know that the work of the task force is already, our plate, the full task force has a plate that's 99% of the time not just full but overflowing, and keeping a quorum at regular task force meetings has become problematic. Mustering quorums and keeping quorums at special meetings has become problematic. So from a very practical standpoint, what Member Snyder is saying is I'm perfectly comfortable with it. If I suppose what we could do is what we do here in any given month, make that part of the committee report that goes forward to the task force.
Yeah.
And we can put it out there in a package and say, here it is, vote it up, amend it, vote it down, whatever you want to do, but here's what we have so far.
Yeah, and I think I think it's important that that we represent to the Ethics Commission that it's coming from the committee, that it's not, it's not coming from the full task force because the full task force will not have signed off on it. But I don't think that weakens it in any way. I just think it's important for honesty and disclosure to say this is the committee. This is the Compliance and Amendments
That's fine.
Committee, yeah.
That's fine.
Can I offer a suggestion? Is it possible that you could just get authority from the full task force to submit what the committee determines, and because you're not being asked to approve anything in final, because nobody knows what the final is going to look like.
Right.
So if at the next, you have a meeting this month, right?
Mm-hmm.
So maybe you should just
30th.
just say the committee's done a lot of time and effort on it, and there's quite a bit to do, and we're trying to wrap it up this week, this Saturday, and we don't have, we're not quite sure that we'll be able to go through another meeting of the full task force to get everybody's, sign off on it. So would you authorize us to go ahead on the assumption that at the end you'll have a chance to review the package?
If the task force says no, then we just submit it as the committee.
Okay.
Well, they're
Member
not
Wolf?
going to say no because they don't even read the package.
Member Wolf?
So I have a suggestion with regards to the suggestions being made. I'm wondering, we submit whatever draft Member Snyder puts together with whatever explanation, cover letter there is, but maybe we could also just draw out what the basic concepts are, what we're trying to do with this, and just get a nod from the task force whether in principle this is what we're trying to do to protect, so on and so forth, and for them to just say, go ahead committee, we agree on those items, do it whatever way you need to do it in order to achieve those goals. So instead of getting them to sit down and read the whole thing, if they agree in concept to these particular principles, values, goals, then we can just go about our business as a committee and put forth. And that might be easier to get instead of spending a lot of time on going over details. And if they have any concerns or anything like that on details, let them put them in writing and forward them to you, Madam Chair, and then we'll have it here for us to review.
Are you volunteering to write a few paragraphs explaining what our goals are?
Sure.
When do we have to get it in
By the 30th.
for the meeting? The meeting's on the
The 28th.
28th. So when would to get this before the task force's 28th meeting, when does that have to be?
Through the chair, for the 28th, I will need it by the 21st.
21st.
You do
Okay, yeah.
like just you're thinking like just general
Just the general,
here's
like.
what
this-
we're doing and why.
Right. These are the, these are the basic concerns that we have with the document. This is what we're trying to offset or protect or to encourage, so on and so forth. And that is our, basic strategy and idea of what we're trying to do with this document. And have it at that. If people have more concern than that, they want to go into more detail of the document itself, put it in writing, red line it, whatever, send it to us, and we'll consider it.
I believe the 21st is a Sunday.
I think your meeting's the 23rd, right? It's
You mean the
fourth-
23rd?
It's the fourth Tuesday?
We moved it to after Thanksgiving.
Yeah,
No,
we
I know, but Member Snyder was asking when he would have to have, in order for something to appear in the agenda packet
Right.
for the 30th, when he would have to have it
Right, Chris said the
to Chris.
21st.
Chris
which
said
is
the
a
21st, and I
Sunday.
believe that's a Sunday.
Yes. The 22nd is a Monday.
Is your meeting the 30th rather than the 23rd?
Yes.
That's correct.
Through the chair, it will be the 28th. For the
I'm sorry?
for the meeting on the
On the 30th.
On the 30th.
So 30th is a Tuesday, going backwards, 29th is Monday. So would you need it like on Friday, the 26th?
Basically, I need it 7 days before the meeting.
Okay, so that would be the
So
23rd.
23rd, okay, sure, can do that. It's 2 weeks from today.
Sounds like a good idea to me.
Okay, you got it.
It looks like we have a plan for the near term. Any other comments from Mr. Grossman, other members?
Nothing more good for the cause?
Actually, I don't know if, I don't think I mentioned it at the meeting, but with the draft that I prepared, at the end, the question of penalties or where there's a willful violation, one of the alternatives that I forgot to put in the draft, but which I think it should be considered, would be for ethics to send the matter over to the district attorney if it involves a willful violation, because that is in fact a violation of section 1222 of the government code, and so that would have a little more teeth, I think, than writing a check for $500 or something.
I wanted to thank you for your memo about the city charter versus the Sunshine Ordinance trumping issue. It was really informative and helpful to me in thinking about these issues.
Well, it came up in that, as I said in the lawsuit that I had to get the ethics records, but it never got tested, so. But it's pretty clear, I think.
Yes, very good. Thank you so much. All right, would you call the next item?
Next item is the administrator's report. Madam Chair, I do not have anything to add. It's now, through the chair, the agenda is getting longer. You need to be aware of that.
The agenda for the regular task
yes.
force meeting, right. The next item,
Public comment.
public comment, and
Seeing none.
we don't see none.
Next item, Madam Chair, is announcements, questions, and future agenda items from committee members.
Member Nee?
Yeah, just have a brief little item for announcements. Before this meeting began, Mr. Wright, who had filed a complaint, and his complaint had been upheld, dropped by just to say thanks to the task force and thanks to the staff to Mr. Rustum for the way we've handled his complaint. He felt that we've given him a fair shake, and he was very appreciative of it.
I'd like to especially thank Member Johnson, who really got some of the vital information to sort of crack that one open.
Agreed.
Thank you so much. Do I hear a motion for adjournment?
So move.
Second?
Second?
Okay. Thanks, everyone.